Welcome back to The Line. Campaign finance reports were in the news again this week. KOB TV4 aired a three-part series that focused on spending and missing information submitted by 10 lawmakers. And local media continues to report on an alleged investigation into campaign finance that went to Jay McCleskey, a close advisor to Governor Susana Martinez. Daniel, we learned this week that Mr. McCleskey owns multiple companies that receive campaign funds but appear to be so-called ghost companies. One side says, look, this is all legal. The other side says this is not good for transparency. Where do you come down on the shadow
it depends. It depends on what we're talking about. I mean, listen, if they open up companies because they're going to place radio ads, and they want a radio ad company, and they're placing this other stuff, you know, at the end of the day, what I've read so far, the problems with Jay McCleskey seem to be stemming from people don't like the amount of money he got paid. And the last time I checked, that's not illegal.
But is it really about that, or is again, my original question, not being able to track the money?
They're totally able to track the money. They've obviously been able to track the money.
Channel 4 had to go through, song and dance to get all this information.
Channel 4's report. Channel 4's report was completely. I mean, talk about the legislators. Talk about It was bizarre because they're not concerned. Their report doesn't say that there's money missing. The report says that it's been reported inaccurately, not the dollar figures. That the check came from Chevron and someone reported it came from a person's name. So I think that right now the topic is how do we make all this hysteria about all the campaign stuff that's out there when the reality is, you know, you can go look, you can go see how much someone's making, how much they're getting paid, how much is being contributed to them. And at the end of the day, is it a perfect system? It's not a perfect system. Is it fairly simple to find out? I can tell you right now, when I was a legislator, we ran numbers of campaigns against people by who gave the money. We did mailers based on people got money from certain groups, certain people. This information has existed. I think this is much to do about nothing. I think the Jay McCleskey problems that they keep trying to bring up, everything that I keep seeing, really at the end of the day, it boils down to there's people that are upset that he's been paid an excessive amount of money in their eyes. And the last time I checked, that's not a crime to get paid a lot of money.
Sanchez, is there enough for your personal gut feeling, transparency here? If you have to figure out what M3 means with a P.O. box, an amount of money and no officers, no treasurers, it just money sort of just floating out there. Who does that serve in the public's interest?
Well, I think there was a deliberate attempt to keep, you know, the connections to Jay McCleskey's shop from the public. And I think that's where the problem is. You know, they created and they didn't even create a shell corporation. I mean, they just put a different name on there. So to me, that's misrepresentation. You're basically, it's not even a real entity. Like you didn't even bother to go through the very easy step of registering a new company, you know, with a new address and a registered agent, which anybody can do, and it costs $50. It's not a big deal. But they didn't even go through that part. And also, you know, in that same step, you could also call Tax and Rev and get a business tax ID number, which every business is supposed to do. Never mind that, you know, I mean, did they pay gross receipts under that company? So these are all transparency issues that are set up for a reason that every business in New Mexico is expected to comply with, and they didn't in this case. And I think the judge, Judge Hennessy, made very clear that he didn't want those connections. And, you know, I guess politically I can understand.
Mr. Hennessy hired Mr. McCleskey's in his firm to do stuff for
and he very clearly didn't want McCleskey's bad sort of, you know, notoriety connected with his campaign. That's understandable, but ultimately you're hiring a particular company. You need to ensure as the candidate that you're being transparent in your reports, and I don't think that happened here.
So for your sense of this, right off the bat, what when you first heard this?
You know, I think we really are talking, or we have been talking about two separate issues. There's the issue that KOB brought up in their reporting about sort of misallocated or misidentified funds within within the campaign reports of a number of legislators. But this issue of what I find fascinating on the campaign finance involving Jay McCleskey, Governor Martinez, and the judge is this idea that you might want to distance yourself from the gentleman who is really considered a kingmaker or queenmaker here in New Mexico, responsible in large part for Governor Martinez's 2 victories, and that he himself recognizes maybe we want to place some distance here. Now, he's suggested, or I think someone associated with him has suggested there are some tactical reasons for this. But to use Dan's phrase, at the end of the day, the purpose of our campaign finance reporting laws is to provide a level of transparency that Mr. McCleskey appears to have attempted to subvert. And whether the law currently addresses that issue or not, It doesn't look good, and it is inconsistent with what we have all sat around this table saying we want, which is greater transparency, better information for the voters, and to Dan's point, the ability to say, you know, I like or don't like who this candidate associates him or herself with.
What do you make of the idea that the judge and others have said, look, we want to place radio buys, for example. We don't want the opposition to know that what we're doing, so we're going to do this sort of a shell game, you know. So I used to have to do this in campaigns too. You go down to the TV and radio stations, you look over the logs, see who's bought time, you see what's coming up. Usually you have a very clear indication on the log who has bought the time. It seems to me in the sense of fair play, and I realize we're talking about politics where fair play is not necessarily, you know, the rule of the day,
Right.
but there's the public's involved here as well. Shouldn't that opposition, the challenging candidate, know who's placing radio ads so they have a chance to do these kind of things?
I think the issue of trying to hide it from your opponent is so much less important than the issue of transparency, which is not to say that your question isn't important, but is to say, on balance, if you're looking at, I would really like to hide this for a short-term, temporary, ephemeral gain against this other person against whom I'm running, versus I have an obligation under campaign finance laws to behave in certain transparent ways. This seems much more important to me, that transparency, rather than the short-term gain.
Interesting.
I'm still confused on how, miraculously, other than it happens to be the name Jay McCleskey, I don't think there's any citizen out there that says, I want to know that a candidate raised 100, spent 100, and I want to know exactly what company that they gave $3,000 to for their mailing. The problem is, it's not, if we're talking about transparency for the voters has to do with the candidate.
But if it
doesn't have to
matter,
do with the
why
people
did they
behind the
bother?
scenes.
If it doesn't matter, why did they bother?
Well,
It seems clear that they thought it mattered.
But they do on all sides of the elections. Everybody does this all the time because
think the
the
important thing
consultants
is-
are irrelevant, and you don't want them to become a relevant part of the campaign.
Well, but ultimately they are relevant, and I think, you know, like it or not, there's different on both sides. There's different consultants that do different kind of work. They have a reputation. They have a strategy behind them, and I think I agree with Dan to a certain extent that it does happen on both sides. But I think the difference is that there isn't a completely fictitious name being reported on campaign reports.
Right.
And I think that's where the real problem is. This is a governor that ran on transparency.
Do you
and
agree
we're
with Sophie
seeing-
when she says if it didn't matter, why would they do it? Do you know what I mean? I think that's a fundamental question there. If it's not that big of a deal and it really doesn't matter, why go through all these gyrations to
Well, I
cover
agree.
your
I mean, I think
tracks?
that's a big red flag. That definitely
You do it
signals.
because what becomes an issue is what the candidates make an issue.
Okay.
And if the candidates can make your campaign consultant an issue, or when down in Roswell, we made a big, if somebody used a mailing service out of Albuquerque or used a shop that was out of state, that became a topic. We made sure we used a local, so all of this stuff plays into it as far as dictating the message that we're giving, but I still think from the transparency perspective, knowing that a candidate received this money, knowing that they spent this money, that's what the campaign finance laws are about.
Here you go. Up next, we learn how one young Albuquerque resident started his own business at home.